We're talking about benefits now because 6 separate benefit payments are being replaced by what's called the universal credit. This is a big shake-up to the welfare system. If you live in Greater Manchester, particularly in Ashton-under-Lyne, you are to be the first to make claims on that from today. Now, earlier on the programme this morning, I spoke to the Work and Pensions Secretary, the architect of all this, Ian Duncan-Smith.
This benefit will change the world of work for people. It will ensure that people going back into work, part-time, etc., on their way to full-time work, will always be better off in work at any hours, unlike tax credits. It will not be open to as much abuse or fraud as tax credit was. We'll be getting monthly summaries of payments. It will be adjusted each month. No longer will we pay people for a year and then wonder why we've overpaid them. That will be adjusted every single month.
Well, let's talk more about this. In the studio now, we've got Owen Jones. Owen is an independent columnist, and we've got Christian Guy beside him, and Christian's director of the Centre for Social Justice, which was founded by Ian Duncan-Smith, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And so what have you had to do, Christian, with this universal credit and its implementation?
Well, very little in terms of its implementation. That is for the government to have been planning. But the CSJ, the think tank I run, was the architect of the idea because we saw a broken system of benefits that was not on the side of people who wanted to work. And we were hitting the poorest people in this country with tax rates of up to 96% effectively. They earned £1 and we took 96 pence of it away. And we thought that was wrong, socially unjust. And we wanted to design a system that said you're better off in work than on benefits. And although universal credit is far from perfect, there are some things that they need to get right in the next few months. It is a much better system because the current system is indefensible.
Owen, how far from perfect is it, in your view?
Well, I think actually shifting from lots of very complex benefits into a simple, transparent, easily understood universal credit is a good thing in principle. My fear is that the way that this is actually being unveiled will drive some of the poorest people even further into hardship. I think relying on a hugely complex IT system with all the potential pitfalls there, which will have to process millions of claims, is a problem. I know that's why it's being very gradually rolled out, but also the fact that we're having a shift from weekly and fortnightly payments to monthly payments. It's going to be that much harder to budget, particularly when you're talking about small amounts of money. It's also now going to be paid directly, not to the main carer, normally that would have been the woman, the mother, but actually to whoever they decide. Now that risk, in my view, undermining the independence of the woman in the relationship. But above all else, this is my fear, as the Chartered Institute for Housing has put it, it risks putting 400,000 families even further into hardship, particularly lone parents.
Why?
Well, because they will end up poorer under this system. Now, the argument that's made is that lone parents, over 60% are in work, but that's lower than comparable countries. But above all else, that's to do with childcare. If we want to make work pay in this country, we need to deal with the fact the average parent is spending a third of their pay packet on childcare compared to 5% in Sweden.
One of the great things about universal credit is that 80,000 people will qualify for childcare support for the first time ever because they don't have to work 16 hours or more. At the moment, you have to work 16 hours to qualify for it. That's going. I think in terms of some of the implementation questions, they're very important questions. But I think you've got to design a system that, and it will work for the overwhelming majority, and then give lots of support to people who will need to adjust and adapt.
Are you asking us to believe that everybody's a winner in this? Central government saves money, and people who are claiming benefit, this is an easier system and they're well off. I mean, because if you can pull that off, that is some achievement.
Well, all political parties think this idea is a good one. I mean, Liam Byrne's been saying that this morning. It's just a question of how you're doing it. And I have to say, I think we have to be more ambitious for people who we think can manage their money, but they might need some support moving from every 2 weeks to every month. But the reason for doing that is the majority of people in work have to manage on a monthly basis. So it's
Charlotte,
about
reaction?
Well, it's interesting, actually, and echoing what Owen was saying there, that a lot of people getting in touch are worried about the fact that it's going to be this complex computer system. They'll have to sort of manage it online, and also real concerns that their budgeting will change, their whole system will change, that they'll now have to move from a lot of them fortnightly to monthly, and that's a big change for a lot of people.
It's a big change, and I remember when they took benefits from every week to every 2 weeks, and people were worried about that. And the important thing is we give people the support if they are concerned, and they will get that support. I think a lot of local authorities have got money to do that. But the point of that is that people are going into work from benefits and crashing out because they can't handle the monthly payment. So if we can have a system that's more realistic before they go into work, getting them used to that, then I think that's
I'm
a
listening
good
to this man. He comes across as very reasonable. He talks in the tone of Ian Duncan Smith. You know, he's got that similar sort of...
He's not that bad,
voice
fortunately.
and tone. But today, in your column in the Independent, I mean, you have said that this is a clever ruse, basically.
Well, no, the point I was making there actually was Ian Duncan Smith's proposals. It's a separate issue. To start means testing various, or to break down the principle of universalism in the welfare state. That is, to take out middle-class pensioners from certain benefits. Now, that is something I'm very worried about, because you're going to end up increasingly with a system where middle-class people will feel they're paying in and getting nothing back, and that actually will end up, I think, fueling the demonisation, the stigmatisation of some of the poorest people in society, which is also a very important part of the welfare state debate. But I think with this, in terms of universal credit, I mean, another issue which has just been pointed to is the shift towards making online claims as well. Now, some of the poorest people in society just don't have internet at home. In fact, up to a third of disabled claimants don't have access. So I think these are real problems. These aren't small technicalities. These are issues which will affect people.
But even you would agree that this is a move in the right direction?
I think actually the packaging, as I say, moving from lots of complex benefits to one benefit is a good thing. But for me, above all else, it doesn't address the main issue. There isn't enough work in Britain. There's 6.5 million people looking for full-time work, which isn't there. It doesn't address the fact we're subsidising landlords with housing benefit who are charging extortionate rents. We're subsidising bosses with tax credits who are paying low pay. That should be the centrepiece, really, of this whole debate on the welfare state.
You do need a benefit system. I agree with all of that. You do need a benefit system that, from the start, means people are better off in work. And just because those things need to improve too, it doesn't mean we shouldn't improve the
that means a
system.
living wage, affordable childcare, affordable transport as well. That's how we make work
How
pay.
can you defend 96% as a tax rate on the poorest? You've got to deal with that too. So let's do universal credit as well as those other things.
Well, I don't, but let's address those issues as well. That's
I agree.
the point. That's
I'd love to see a living wage. I'd love to see more social housing. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't do the
And will the
benefit.
universal be universal in 5 years' time?
No, this is for people who are at the lower income end.
No, but what I mean is you're rolling it out in pilot schemes at the moment, bit by bit.
They're taking it from a few people today to 9 million people over 4 years. So I think they're going to have to make sure that that is done as smoothly as possible. But it's a great system that they're bringing in, and it's much, much better than we've got right now.
Gentlemen, got to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed.